So this is an HP Mini 110, the Pink Chic Edition. It's a class of products that's really fascinating to me, mainly because it seemed to be extremely relevant at one point in time during the late 2000s, but then it was quickly almost entirely replaced by things like tablets. These sub-notebooks, or netbooks, or palmtops, how people like to call them, were essentially small, underpowered, cheap laptops that could still do basic tasks, get on the internet, and yet be able to fit every bag, or, I guess, purse, and, be compact and lightweight. This one was being sold for around $330, so right in the range of these ultra portables, ranging from $250 to around $400. Now, as a teen, I never really understood the appeal, and to be honest, I still kinda don't, but I gotta say they're quite cute. I mean, just look at them. To put it in perspective, I did a video months ago about a very similar product. This one is from Acer, it's an Aspire 1, and like I've said in that video, pretty much every major computer manufacturer had a similar computer in their lineup that was supposed to fill in that netbook palmtop niche. And yeah, this one identifies as an Apple, I guess. And then Apple eventually came out with the MacBook Air. This is the 11-inch model, though that wouldn't come out until a couple of years later. And yeah, even though these computers came in like more neutral looking colors, the one that I have here is totally like bedazzled. I mean, this is one loud pink, and heck, it's even pink on the inside too. Nice. This was all an attempt by HP to broaden their target audience because, according to their own marketing, it was supposed to appeal to women and girls.
One of the most exciting things that we have in the lineup this year is really our focus on the minis. As minis become more of a lifestyle companion for all users, one of the areas that we wanted to really focus on address was how we're addressing the female segment. So we've worked with various designers like Vivian Tam to really kind of focus on the fashionista, the lady that wants the kind of fashion expression, but also we're focusing on a new category, which is probably the 16 to 18-year-old young girl that, pink is still a popular color in that age group. And then as we turn it around, you'll actually notice that on the inside, the touchpad also matches the outside, and it actually is as 3D as the outside, so it actually has a dimension to it. And one of the things that we did want to do is make sure that the UI matched the outside. So we partnered with various artists. This one is Julie West, and she's brought a theme, this preppy pink theme, to the wall.
Yeah, they had a model design apparently by Vivian Tam, and I had no idea who that was, so I had to look it up. The pink model they're showing in that clip is of course a bit different to what I have, but it's still the same lineup of notebooks. But yeah, that promo interview from, I guess, HP's representative was a blast from the past. I mean, a guy describing what women were looking for in a product and assuming they would just love pink and all that feminine software. Yeah, I don't think that lingo would fly nowadays, but hey, this was probably shot like 15 years ago, and it's charming nonetheless. Although since it is January 2025, I don't know, I mean, it might be cool to say again. I don't know, look, according to my YouTube analytics, I don't have too many ladies watching, but if there are some by any chance, you tell me, would this notebook appeal to you? I have asked my wife, and she loved it. She even let me borrow one of her purses for the thumbnail. Awesome. And yeah, depending on the size, you could absolutely fit this thing not only in your small backpack, but in your purse as well. It's about the size of a tablet, although much thicker. And one other thing that really caught my eye in that promo video were the custom themes that came with these, because it's one of those experiences that you rarely get with computers nowadays. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do love a fresh install, but there's just something nostalgic about those custom Windows themes of the past. I remember having one with my Pentium 3 computer back in the day. It had a bunch of bloatware and media widgets. So I was curious to see whether it had any custom themes on that tiny hard drive. But before seeing what's on this guy, we had to see whether or not it works at all, because much like the rest of my collection, this laptop was saved from being recycled, so I had no idea as to its condition. It looked pretty sleek on the outside, and it still had its battery and all of its port covers intact, so I just decided to plug it in and give it a test. With these notebooks, I always use my universal laptop adapter, and I had good luck with it. It comes with various plugins, so I made sure to use the right one, as well as the right voltage and polarity, and once I've plugged it in, I could see a little indicator light. And upon sliding the power on lever, the thing turned on.
What?
And apparently this thing had the BIOS and everything else set to Italian, so I guess that's where the machine came from. Buongiorno to all my Italian viewers, I guess. And yeah, like it happened so many times before, it looks like the previous owner didn't wipe their hard drive before getting rid of this machine, which we see time and time again on this channel. And yeah, it booted into Windows 7, which was the operating system this thing initially shipped with, so I was feeling confident that this could be the original install. Now I could see that this thing had a password protected account, but that doesn't mean crap as far as security goes really. In my previous video I've shown you how a Mac's account password can be easily reset, and yeah, Windows 7 is no better in that regard. There are many methods of doing this, some include third-party software, but the official version is to use the reset disk or a bootable USB which came with the machine, but since I don't have that, I'm just using a regular Windows 7 bootable USB, which allows you to get into the command line and copy the sticky keys executable to the C drive, after which you'll have access to the command line at the login screen, and from there you can easily reset the password to whatever you like. And bam, we're in. Now for the 100th time, the only reason I'm doing this is to show people that at least wiping or even better destroying the drive before you get rid of your old computer is very important, because you never know where that drive might end up. And the second reason why I wanted to get into this account is to check out those pink custom themes, which unfortunately were nowhere to be found. And I don't know whether that's because the drive was formatted at some point, or perhaps it never came with any custom themes, or they were removed at some point or something. Just by looking around, I was able to find some custom HP software like this HP Games utility. So that's something that definitely wasn't part of the original Windows installation. And I've also found that this thing was used as a media player, since I found a TV show which was totally legitimately downloaded, I'm certain. If you know what show this is, let me know in the comments. And I do have to say, having this thing on a bus, train, or a plane to watch like Prison Break in 2008, I mean, it would have been pretty awesome. And I had complaints with that Acer Aspire screen since it was so glossy and had too much glare, whereas this one really isn't too bad really. So apart from watching legitimately downloaded TV shows and movies, what else would a girl want to do on this thing? Perhaps browse the web? And yeah, I've tried the existing version of Firefox that was left on here, but didn't have too much luck with it. So I've installed the latest version of Firefox, extended support for the 32-bit versions of Windows 7, and yeah, while it was slow as balls, I was able to download Fraps, which we'll use to monitor the gaming performance of this thing, and I've also downloaded a couple of patches to get some of these games working on this hardware and OS. And man, did I torture that poor Intel Atom. I mean, good lord, this thing was definitely not designed to do any of these tasks in 2025, but we're going to try anyway. And we're not even going to try running any of the more modern software. Instead, we're going to stick with the early to mid 2000s titles, starting with, of course, UT 2004 here, a game which I'm certain was on every teenage girl's list of must-haves. And I mean, it kinda ran like crap, and to me that usually means that everything else is gonna run like crap, since this is such a well-optimized engine. But if you keep in mind the hardware we're dealing with, like 20 to 30 FPS down to single digits on occasion, really isn't too bad in my opinion. I mean, would I play this in like 2008 or 9 if I had a tiny netbook like this? Heck yeah, I'd play that, but to be honest, games I'm showing here probably run better on like a desktop from 5 years back. And most of that lack of performance probably has to do with two things. One is that poor Intel Atom bottlenecking the whole show, and the other is the mobile Intel 945 Express Integrated Graphics chipset that shares that puny 1 GB of available system memory, and by default is set to 64 whole megabytes of VRAM. The gameplay varied from what I would call barely playable, like Serious Sam or Flat Out here, to absolutely unplayable, like Call of Duty 2, which gave me all sorts of errors upon trying to start the game up, so I've ended up running it through Swift Shader, which forces the game to run in pure software mode, and it sucked ass. And the big question, of course, is whether it can run Crysis, and as you saw, I have my Apple external SuperDrive hooked up, and these work great on PCs. You just have to install appropriate drivers from Apple Bootcamp libraries. And upon installing the game and running the necessary patches and updates, it started up with a familiar message about the unsupported graphics card, which doesn't always mean it will not start up, but in this case it just crashed, which is not unexpected given the lack of, everything, but most importantly the video RAM. So I thought there must be something we could do about giving this thing a fighting chance by upgrading the one thing it could really use, which is of course memory. And upon turning this thing around, we see a nice little access door at the bottom, harkening back to a bygone age of user upgradability. Just unscrew these two screws and we have access to one memory expansion slot, which currently has 1 gig DDR2 RAM module, so we're going to bump that up to the maximum of 2 gigs. I also wanted to see whether perhaps there was a way to increase that shared VRAM portion, so I went to the BIOS, but there was surprisingly little you can do there in terms of configuration. So I've tried investigating the Windows registry editor, where you can sometimes find a directory with a file you can edit to bump up the shared memory portion, but I wasn't able to find it. And I'm sure you could perhaps update the BIOS or find some other way of modifying the amount of VRAM available to the system, but I ran out of patience. Sorry. With an extra gig of memory, to be honest, I didn't really notice any drastic improvements in Windows or in games, so like I've said, it's very likely we're just bottlenecked by that Atom processor. And I know some netbooks employed the Intel Core 2 Duo processors, and I'm sure those would do a far better job, especially if paired with a bit more video memory. Oh well, at least you can browse the web and watch YouTube videos. And by watch, I mean listen. Yeah, even when cranking down the resolution, the best I've seen this thing perform is audio playback with frames popping in here and there. If you're looking for a PC on a budget, it's likely you're getting a better deal than this. Plus, as we'll see, this thing is... And I don't know, perhaps I'm being too hard on it. After all, just look at it. In a way, it's amazing this pink cutie is pulling any of these stunts at all. Even when it was brand new, this thing was designed to do light office work, perhaps a bit of late 2000s web browsing, nothing ridiculous, no graphic intensive loads, so we have to give credit for all the effort. And one thing I will say though, for office work, this thing has a damn good keyboard if you'd believe it. I mean, for a plastic piece of crap 10-inch palmtop. I mean, but I don't know, I had a nice time typing on it. It's no ThinkPad keyboard, but I didn't hate it either. Also, the processing power isn't the only thing that aged poorly when it comes to this machine, since it would die as soon as the power was disconnected, which tells me that the battery in this thing is cooked. And again, a decent tablet nowadays pretty much does everything this thing was designed to do 15 years ago and then some, and I'm pretty sure those also come in all shapes and colors. You can probably get a pink one too. I just don't think the marketing angle would be the same, although what do I know. So it was time to put this thing away, and I think it will be just comfortable tucked away where I guess it was designed to be. And I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this fun little class of computers from a slightly different time period. And if you own one of these or a similar machine, let me know in the comments what was it like using it and what did you use it for. And if you had a machine like this nowadays, what would you do with it? What kind of an OS and software would you run on it? And if you like watching me tinker with 2000s hardware, there's plenty of that here in my channel. I do videos like this every week. Repairs, restorations, reviews, retrospectives, and so on. And if you'd like to support what I do, you can join my Patreon for just $1 a month, or more if you'd like. If you'd like to chat with me and other users, you can join our Discord server. All the links will be in the video description. Thanks, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers!